Bam, Leute, und herzlich willkommen zurück zu Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney. In der Episode 5 Rise from the Ashes, endlich in der letzten Aufnahmesession von diesem Teil der Trilogie am finalen Tag im Gericht. In der Defendant Lobby Number 2. Ich habe jetzt ein anderes Headset. Leider gab es mein altes Headset, was ich vorher hatte, nicht mehr. Deshalb habe ich jetzt eins geholt, was ähnlich war, aber ich glaube, es ist ein Ticken schlechter, würde ich meinen. Also wahrscheinlich wird es ein bisschen anders klingen. Ich hoffe aber, es ist immer noch ganz okay. Hoffe ich. Naja, mal gucken. Wir im letzten Part waren wir im Büro von Damon Gant. Ehemalig auch das Büro von Lana. Und haben dort ein paar Sachen gefunden. Ein Stück Stoff mit einem Fingerabdruck, glaube ich, oder einem Handabdruck. Und das letzte Stück dieser strangen Vase haben wir da gefunden. Und wir werden jetzt mal gucken, wie wir hier vor Gericht bestehen werden. Ich werde jetzt hier nicht lange rumlabern, sondern let's dig in. This is the defendant lobby, alright? But there's no defendant. I've been trying to reach Lana all morning. Where could she be? And where's Emma, for that matter? It almost seems as if something's happening behind the scenes. Wer spricht da? Edgeworth. Edgeworth? Knowing you, you've already figured it out. Who the owner of the 77777 ID number is, that is. Well, I have a pretty strong hunch. Ja, das ist jetzt auch, nicht allzu weit hergeholt. Ich glaube, das hat jeder verstanden mittlerweile. Looks like I'm not the only one who's figured it out. Nee, Phoenix, definitiv nicht. You know, the only reason this trial didn't reach a verdict yesterday is because there was still room for doubt regarding this ID record. If that number does belong to whom you suspect, then no doubt will remain. After all, he hasn't been officially charged with anything. True, not yet. In any event, once all doubt has been removed from that list, I can call for a ruling. 5 minutes, right? And Chief Prosecutor Sky will be found guilty. But she didn't do it. Well, I figured you'd say as much. That's why I came here, to hear what you have to say. This is the first time he's ever done something like this. Lana's hiding something, and the only way we'll ever know the truth is to draw it out of her. The truth? Everything goes back to the SL9 incidents. Don't be stupid. Today is the last day of the trial. We don't have time to reminisce about the past. That depends on you. If she's found guilty, you lose your only chance to find out what really happened. I'll think about it. See you in court, right? This is it. If I'm ever going to find out what Chief Gant has on her, it's now. Da sind wir wieder. Hey, Judge. Wie geht's dir? No? The court is now in session for the trial of Miss Lana Sky. Defense is ready, Your Honor. Prosecution is ready, Your Honor. Normally, this is when the prosecution puts forth its opening statement. But before that, the police chief has a proposal to make. Chief Gant? Da ist er ja. Morning, folks! How's everyone doing? Hey, RG, been packed to the pool yet? No, I've been trying enough as it is in my work. Oh, that's a good one. Don't think I can top that. But don't mind me asking, Chief, exactly what is this proposal of yours? Lana, that is to say, the defendant, has asked me if she could speak directly to the court. She wants to do what? Having heard what she intends to say, I feel she should be granted her request. In the end, it should save everyone a lot of time and trouble. Okay. Immerhin haben wir dann die Möglichkeit, sie zu cross-examinen, ne? What's this all about, defendant? I'd just like to make one simple request, and I'll be finished. Well then, what's your request? Your Honor, I'd like you to put an immediate end to this trial. Huh? I confess to all charges against me. On February 21 of this year, I murdered Detective Bruce Goodman in the underground parking lot of the prosecutor's office. No, Lana! Yeah, tell him, Phoenix! You can't! Your Honor, the defendant's claim does not change the defense's plea. In that case, Mr. Wright, I no longer require your services. But Lana! Your Honor, I hereby forfeit my right to an attorney. The prosecution may lack direct evidence against me, but it has sufficiently proven that its case through testimony and circumstantial evidence. I would like you to render your verdict now, if you please. Well, the defendant certainly has the right to self-representation. The request is legally valid, although this is an unprecedented situation. Immer diese schwierigen Wörter. Yeah, indeed, it appears there's no further need to continue this trial. Doch! Even if Mr. Wright may feel otherwise. This can't be happening. It appears the time for the verdict has arrived. This court finds the defendant. One moment, Your Honor. Mr. Edgeworth? Prosecution has not yet proven the defendant guilty beyond reasonable doubt. Any ruling at this stage would certainly be premature. Come now, Worthy. I understand this is a difficult time for you, but why don't you just be a good little boy and keep your mouth shut, hmm? Yeah, wiggle your finger! I don't think I care for your tone, Chief Gant. What? Creating another fabrication to cover up your past mistakes. Sorry, but I'm no longer the naive little boy you would have me be. With this sudden confession from the defendant, it's obvious to me some kind of deal was struck behind the scenes. Some kind of deal, hmm? Not everyone operates as you do, Worthy. Oh. Huh. I thought so. Your Honor, the prosecution would like to change its first witness. Oh, to whom? As its first witness, the prosecution would like to call Miss Emma Skye. I request the court hears her testimony. Mr. Edgeworth, I am exercising my right to self-representation. I don't think we need to continue. I don't care what you think, Miss Skye. The exposure of truth sometimes results in tragedy. However, no matter how tragic the truth may be, it would be an even greater tragedy to avert one's eyes from it. Very well. The court shall grant the prosecution's request. That's okay with you, right, Chief Gant? Worthy, you live to regret this. Mark my words. Miss Emma Skye, please take the stand. Looks like Edgeworth has decided to take the horse by the reins. Oh. Now then, witness, please state your name and occupation. My name is Emma Skye.
my occupation? I'm Lana's little sister and I want to be a scientific investigator.
Ich krieg das Scientific nie auf die Reihe. 2 years ago, you encountered the serial killer Joe Dark of the Joe Dark killings. Is this correct?
Yes. I'm trying my hardest to forget about that, though.
I'm sorry, but I'm afraid I'm going to have to ask you to recall those events one more time.
Mr. Ashworth, please remember this trial concerns the murder of Detective Goodman. Is an incident that was resolved 2 years ago really all that relevant?
Yes, it most certainly is.
Well, okay then.
You sure gave it fast. Now, please testify about what happened to you 2 years ago.
Trip to yesteryear has finally begun.
Yesteryear? Ist das ein offizieller Begriff?
Huh. It's bound to lead to the truth behind this trial.
Alright. 2 years ago. Witness testimony.
I was waiting in my sister's office that day. A man came running in and took me hostage. Neil Marshall rescued me. But I never forget what I saw in that instant. The man raised up his knife and stabbed Mr. Marshall in the chest. It's a good thing you weren't harmed. I passed out. I don't remember much. That's understandable. However, please tell me, Mr. Edgeworth, what does this testimony have to do with Detective Goodman's murder?
That will soon become apparent, Your Honor.
You've got to admire him for his courage, considering he has no evidence. Very well. The defense may begin its cross-examination.
Okay, dann müssen wir jetzt aber mitspielen. Und die Connection finden. I was waiting in my sister's office that day. A man came running in and took me hostage. A man?
Yes, Joe Dark. He was a serial killer.
Joe Dark was brought in for questioning on the day of that ceremony. We were desperate to get anything on him that would lead to an arrest.
When he saw his chance, he fled the room, right?
Upon fleeing the room, Dark proceeded to take the elevator. He must have been in a panic because the elevator was going up. Then he ran into Sky and Gant's office.
There was a lot of noise coming from outside, so I opened up the door to have a look. That's when I saw him.
Neil Marshall rescued me. What was the prosecutor doing there? That day there were 2 people present during Dark's questioning. Deputy Chief Damon Gant and Prosecutor Neil Marshall. I almost forgot about Gant. Stimmt, ja, der war auch da. Neil Marshall had just received the King of Prosecutor Award. Young and dedicated, he went straight to the questioning room after the ceremony.
I assume that would also be why he was the first to run after Dark. When Dark grabbed me, I thought I was as good as dead.
That's when Prosecutor Marshall came running in.
I don't clearly remember what happened then. But
I forget what I saw in that instant. Okay. Can you tell us about that?
Mr. Marshall jumped on Dark. Just then, the lights went out. The lights? It was just about this time of year. There was a terrible storm going on and lightning struck nearby.
So the electricity went out.
Wait a minute. If it was pitch dark in that room, you shouldn't have been able to see anything, right? Right, but just then lightning flashed again outside. That sudden flash left an unforgettable image of the scene in my mind. I see. I told the detective about what I saw then.
The detective?
Yes, Detective Goodman. He was in charge of the case.
Detective Bruce Goodman, the victim. Ja, hear more, würde ich sagen. Und ich muss mal ganz eben hier ein bisschen leiser machen, denn es dröhnt mir gerade die Ohren weg. So, you spoke with Detective Goodman about this 2 years ago.
Yes, that's what's so scary about this trial.
And you told Detective Goodman about what you saw?
Yes, but at the time, the words just wouldn't come out. That's why I drew a picture.
A picture? Yes, I think she mentioned that before.
Well, Mr. Wright, have you heard enough?
Ask about the picture. Ja, natürlich. This picture the witness drew, I believe it has a very important meaning. But the list of evidence I was given 2 years ago didn't contain a picture. Ja, aber du hast ja nicht alles gekriegt, ne? Die List of Evidence war ja zweigeteilt, ne? Und er hat nur die Hälfte bekommen. Den Rest hat Damon Gant wohl weggepackt.
Witness, would you mind if we added this statement to your testimony? Yes, Your Honor. I drew a picture of that scene once, but it seems to have been lost.
It's lost. You drew a picture of the scene you witnessed, right?
Yes, I wanted to do everything I could to help the investigation. I can still see it now, whenever I close my eyes.
That's strange. I took over the case after Prosecutor Marshall died, yet I never received any picture. Perhaps the witness is mistaken.
But I did right, I swear, I'm not just imagining it.
This picture Emma drew, that reminds me. I guess I should check the evidence again. Well, anyway, let's continue. The scene that imprinted an image on in your mind. Can you please describe it to us?
The man.
Moment, wir sollen unsere Court Record überprüfen. Ja, wir haben ja ein Bild gesehen bei der Investigation im letzten Part. Wo war das? Ah. I mean, the list of evidence was ripped in half, so this part is all I've got. Das war Damon Gants Liste. Können wir checken? Okay, man kann es nicht mal lesen. Ah, nee, warte, es war doch... Moment. Es war doch hier hinten, ne? Genau. Hier haben wir das Bild, was wir Emma nicht gezeigt haben. The picture is drawn on the back of the evidence list in magic marker. Das ist ein Magic Marker. I've got a very bad feeling about this. Ja, aber das ist definitiv das Bild, das sie gezeichnet hat. Dann würde ich sagen, präsentieren wir mal das hier. Mr. Edgeworth. This little girl put all her heart into drawing that picture. And yet you would insist on denying its existence? Hey, I'm not the bad guy. All I'm saying is that, as the prosecutor for the case, I wasn't handed such a picture. That may well be, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Behold!
This is the evidence list for the SL9 incident.
Please turn it over, Your Honor. Zumindest die Hälfte.
Turn it over? Turn it... Oh! What's this?
Yes, what is that?
Hey, that's it! That's the picture I drew! Indeed, 2 men appear to be wrestling here.
What's the meaning of this? What are you doing with that list? Me? Only the prosecutor in charge should have access to that list.
Huh? These lists, they're different from each other.
What?
It would appear, Mr. Edgeworth, that the evidence list you were handed 2 years ago was incomplete. These 2 lists fit together to form one. You can see the marks here where they were torn apart from each other.
Das hat man nicht bemerkt. So you see, Mr. Edgeworth, it's quite obvious what happened. Also komm, als ob Edgeworth nicht erkennen würde, dass was auseinandergerissen wurde.
Gut.
2 years ago, only half of the evidence list in a case ever reached you. What? What?
Order! But, Miss Guy, why did you draw your picture on the back of such an important list? Because that's what Detective Goodman handed me in the questioning room, Your Honor.
Wait a minute. If this list was torn in half, then that means... Your Honor!
Are you alright, Mr. Wright? Your eyes are bulging from your head.
If the evidence list was torn in half, then there might be more of the drawing on the back of Mr. Edgeworth's list. Und du willst mir jetzt nicht sagen, dass man das auch nicht gesehen hat? Dass auf der Rückseite von Edgeworths Liste ein Bild ist? Hat man nie, auch nur im geringsten bemerkt?
Yes, that's quite conceivable, Mr. Edgeworth.
It's possible, let's see.
Edgeworth.
My boy, please.
Is something wrong?
Do you even have to ask? Sorry, Your Honor. There is indeed something drawn on the back of my list. It's that thing. Blue Badger.
That's that thing. That thing that was dancing in the evidence room.
Clearly, this act of vandalism is the work of a certain chief of detectives.
I guess he was out of scrap paper.
List of Evidence. Aha, updated. Können wir das nochmal angucken? Moment, bevor wir hier weitermachen. Okay. Aber es gehört schon zusammen, ne? Es hat auf der rechten Seite hat es jetzt auch eine Wand oben und unten, beziehungsweise wenn wir es drehen, links und rechts, ne? Unten ist dann der Boden. Und dann geht es so in einer Kurve oben zusammen, ne? Okay. Aber warum auch immer da der Kopf da ist.
Very well. Witness, will you please testify about this picture I drew 2 years ago?
Huh? Oh, yes, sir, Your Honor. What's wrong with Emma? She seemed to be thinking about something when she was looking at the picture. Emma's picture.
This is the picture I drew 2 years ago. The flash of lightning was so bright all I could see were shadows. After that I must have fainted. This picture shows exactly what I saw in that instant.
Okay. Da war nicht viel Info.
To think a flash of lightning could burn such an image in your mind.
Next to that, though, she was able to show us exactly what she saw.
Well, I don't see any contradictions here. This clearly shows Joe Dark about to murder prosecutor Neil Marshall. The defense may now begin its cross-examination.
Ja, da gab es jetzt, wie gesagt, nicht viel. This is the picture I drew 2 years ago. Yeah, nothing wrong. The flash of lightning was so bright all I could see were shadows. So at the time you didn't even know it was Mr. Marshall who had come to your rescue?
No, I couldn't see him clearly. The lightning was so bright, and I was knocked to the floor.
You were knocked to the floor?
Dark had a tight grip on me. But when Mr. Marshall jumped on him, I was knocked away. I turned around, and that's when the lightning flashed.
Mhm. Zum Glück kriegen wir ein bisschen ein besseres Bild.
Poor Emma, I'm just glad she wasn't hurt.
What happened after the lightning flashed? Must have fainted. You mean you didn't see the actual murder take place?
No, I'm sorry.
The flash of lightning only drove off the darkness for a split second. Not only that, but the trauma of the situation understandably caused the witness to faint. Do you really need to torture this girl any further?
What? Hey, I'm not the bad guy here.
No.
Anyway, this picture. This picture shows exactly what I saw in that instant.
Also, wir sind wieder hier. Okay.
Sorry for asking so many times, but are you sure you drew exactly what you saw? Of course, this is the exact scene.
It wasn't influenced in any way from your talks with the detectives? Are you insinuating we somehow manipulated her memory, Mr. Wright?
No, of course not. You better watch out, or he might find some way to cut my salary.
Ja. Würde er hinkriegen, wahrscheinlich.
I drew this picture before I heard anything from the detectives. So I don't think anyone's story would have influenced me. Mr. Wright, is there something that's bothering you about this picture?
Ja, warum ist der Blue Badger dort? Warum war der im Büro? Huh? Oh, well.
That's strange.
She claims this is exactly the scene that was imprinted in her mind. And yet, there's clearly a contradiction here. Ist es das? Hat es hier? Gibt's hier eine Contradiction? Aber nicht, dass die Waffe, dass die ein Lineal ist. Ich hoffe, das ist nicht damit gemeint. Also in dem Bild. Eine Contradiction. Gucken wir das nochmal an. Das haben wir noch nicht gehört. Did you draw this picture right after the incident?
I think I drew it 2 or 3 days later. At first I was in such a state of shock that I couldn't do anything.
During that time, the investigation team was reorganized. Detective Goodman was placed in charge, under the direction of Damon Gant and Lana's guy. 2 or 3 days later, the memory should still have been fresh in her mind.
Excuse me, witness. But can you please tell us why this picture is painted all black?
Ja gut, das haben wir jetzt. Moment. Es soll eine Contradiction geben. Was ist die Contradiction? Wir müssen ja eh was präsentieren. Was können wir überhaupt präsentieren? Neil autopsy stabbed in the back, died from punctured heart and lung. A knife tip was in the wound. Okay, vielleicht was damit. Stabbed in the back. Ich meine, er könnte ihm in den Rücken gestochen haben. Ist nicht unwahrscheinlich, wenn das die Mordszene war. Ist hier noch was drin? Ne, das sind nur Daten, ne? Okay, ne, Daten bringen uns hier nicht weiter. Ins Locker. Hier hinten wird halt das alles nicht direkt, das ist ja von unserem aktuellen Fall, das wird uns hier nicht weiterbringen. Also das, warum... Ich probiere es mal mit dem Autopsy Report. Ich meine, es sieht so aus, als würde ihm, keine Ahnung, voll eine ins Gesicht dreschen. Aber ich meine, er könnte ihn trotzdem in den Rücken stechen. Aber ich probiere es trotzdem mal. Okay, es ist richtig. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but this picture the witness drew contains a blatant contradiction. What? But I still remember it just like it was yesterday.
Mr. Wright, perhaps it would be faster if you simply pointed out this contradiction for us. What part of this picture contradicts the autopsy report?
Ich muss es auf dem Bild zeigen. Soll ich das Messer zeigen? Contradiction, of course, lies here. Take a look at the knife the man is holding. If you look closely, you can see its tip is broken.
Even I don't have to look closely to see that, Mr. Wright. But, Mr. Wright, look at the evidence. See the murder weapon? The tip is broken too. If I recall.
Okay, Okay, ich hab an was völlig anderes gedacht, aber scheinbar habe ich es irgendwie richtig gemacht. Es geht um die Spitze, die bereits... Okay, es war also doch die Waffe, die, habe ich ja auch schon erwähnt, aber ich dachte nicht, dass es das wäre. Die Waffe ist schon abgebrochen, das heißt, sie sollte eigentlich schon in der Wunde sein, bevor er überhaupt zugestochen hat, oder wie?
The tip of that knife was found broken off in the victim's body. It was the conclusive piece of evidence that proved Joe Dark was murdered.
Was the murder? nicht so. I'm afraid it's not so simple, Emma. And where, pray tell, could you possibly see a problem? It's obvious, really. The victim suffered a single stab wound to the back. If the victim was only stabbed once, warum ist das Messer schon abgebrochen? Then the murder weapon should not yet be broken.
What's the meaning of this?
Perhaps the knife was broken beforehand. Ja, und dann? Wie kommt das Ding dann da in die Wunde? Sorry, but I'm afraid that's not possible. The tip of the knife was found inside the victim's body. If it was broken beforehand, it couldn't possibly wind up there.
That's right, but what does this mean?
Kannst du auch was anderes sagen, Judge? Das ist, glaube ich, dein Lieblingssatz.
What does this mean?
The tip of the knife was undeniably discovered within the victim's body. The only possible explanation is the witness's memory is mistaken. That's why I asked her so many times if she was sure she remembered correctly. I believe we were annoyed at that time, but she was sure she remembered correctly. But there's no other way to explain this inconsistency. Not so fast, Mr. Edgeworth. There is another explanation. Have you forgotten already? About a little something called falsified evidence. You're treading me on thin ice, right? All I'm saying is that this broken knife tip might be the piece of evidence that was forged. You can't deny the possibility. No.
Order! What does this mean?
Your Honor, please allow me to once again go over the events that took place the day of the murder. Ich glaube, ich könnte den Judge bei jedes Mal einfach diesen Satz sprechen lassen und es würde genauso gut klingen. Also es würde genauso gut rüberkommen. The police department and the prosecutor's office were holding a ceremony that day. Oh, by the way, meine freaking Nase läuft direkt wieder. Kaum bin ich am Aufnehmen. What is this witchcraft? After receiving the King of Prosecutors Award at the ceremony, Neil Marshall questioned Joe Dark along with Damon Gant. During his questioning, Joe Dark fled the room. Prosecutor Marshall chased after him and was killed by Dark. It is my belief that somewhere in the story there is a lie.
What does this mean?
Sorry. Ich find's zu witzig. Ja.
I'm not lying. The man really was holding up a broken knife.
If that's true, then there's no other way around it. This could not have been the actual murder weapon. There must have been another broken knife.
What are the chances of there being 2 broken knives?
What does... ja, ist gut. Another broken knife besides Joe Dark's.
Could there have been one?
Ich glaube, ich weiß aber zumindest schon mal den Folgentitel.
Could there have been one?
Could there have been one? Also eine andere Waffe. Eine abgebrochene Waffe. Ich glaube, das hat er gefragt, ne? Gibt's eine andere? Emma's mistaken, there is another one. Also gut, das wäre eine lame Antwort. Emma's mistaken. Aber wir glauben ihr. Von daher muss es eigentlich das sein. Rein vom Gameplay-technischen her. If the witness is this adamant about the accuracy of what she saw, it can't just be explained away by a simple observational error.
Mr. Wright.
In that instant, Emma really did see a broken knife.
I assume then that you have some information about this other broken knife. If so, please feel free to enlighten us.
The murder weapon was already broken prior to the murder. There's only one way. Take a look at this. Here's the real murder weapon. Ein abgebrochenes... Das ist nicht abgebrochen. Mit dem Blue Basher wurde es getötet. Guck! Sein linker Zipfel ist abgebrochen. Die ist es ja nicht. Der Screwdriver? Die ist ja nicht ab... Nee, ist ja nicht... Es muss wirklich abgebrochen sein, weil etwas darin gefunden wurde, oder? I don't know. Broken. Hä? Ich hab doch hier nichts Brokenes. Ist hier was drin? Nee. Hier ist auch keine Waffe drin, oder? Es ist eine Waffe, aber sie ist nicht broken. Also es gibt 2 Möglichkeiten, aber die sind beide nicht gebrochen. Möglichkeit 1 ist der Screwdriver. Wobei, kann man mit einem Screwdriver jemanden... Schwierig, ne? Und die andere Möglichkeit ist, die andere einzige Waffe ist hier in dem Bild. Hier von dieser Rüstung. Ach nee, warte, ich sehe es gerade. Ach, hier ist es gar nicht drauf. Die King of Prosecutors Trophy. The halberd was removed at Gant's behest. Da war das gebrochene Schwert drauf. Soll ich jetzt das oder das Bild? Ich glaube, ich präsentiere das, weil hier steht, dass die halberd drauf war. If anything's broken here, it's you. Huh?
I'm sure this must all be very amusing to you, Mr. Wright. But may I remind you that the fate of Miss Lana Skye hangs in the balance.
Sorry, Your Honor. Please give me another chance. Okay, dann mache ich halt das Bild. The answer lies in the past. 2 years in the past. Right here, inside this picture. This is a picture of the award ceremony.
What is it, Mr. Edgeworth?
It's the broken murder weapon. Notice the award prosecutor Marshall is holding.
That's a broken knife.
As we earlier concluded, the knife in the drawing was not Joe Dark's knife. That being the case, the knife the witness saw was in all likelihood from this award.
Order!
Neil Marshall was awarded King of Prosecutors that day. As an award, he was given this broken shield and knife. When he chased after Joe Dark, he pulled out this knife. Being a prosecutor, he did not carry a pistol. This broken knife was the only weapon he had in this dangerous situation. But that can't be. Oh, and why not, Mr. Edgeworth? Because if the King of Prosecutors Award knife was the murder weapon, then the murderer and the victim would be reversed. Stimmt, ja, weil dann hätte ja... Also dann... Neil hätte ja die Waffe gehabt. What do you mean?
What does this mean?
I mean... This man raising a knife would have been Prosecutor Neil Marshall. Oh. Ja. Sein Joe Dark hat von ihm gestohlen.
But the prosecutor was the one who actually died.
That's true. What's going on here? It seems Mr. Wright has been a bit too eager to jump to conclusions. Hold it.
Oh, wait, I remember now. I remember everything. Witness? Mr. Edgeworth.
What is it?
Could you show me your evidence list again, please? His list? The one of that picture scribbled on the back.
Yeah.
I knew it. This picture. I'm the one who drew it.
Ja, ist ja klar, oder? What? You drew that? Ja, wer sonst?
That's right. The list wasn't torn in half at the time I drew this picture.
Ich dachte, das wäre klar. Wir haben es sogar extra zusammengefügt in unserer Evidence List.
All this time I've been trying so hard to forget. I must have locked this part away deep inside me. Perhaps it would be best if we added this to the witness testimony. Would you please tell us what you've recalled, Miss Guy?
Yes, Your Honor. First the knife mix-up and now the blue badger? This should be interesting. I call it weird. Emma's recollection.
When I saw that man raise his knife, I panicked and rushed toward both of them.
Okay.
I think I knocked away the man with the knife. Just then, there was another flash of lightning, and that's when I saw the blue badger. He wasn't in the room, but I'm sure I saw his shadow.
Okay, sie hat ihn weggenockt, das heißt, sie hat dann wohl Neil Marshall weggenockt und dann hat Joe ihn umbringen können. Wahrscheinlich, ne? Irgendwie so.
This is certainly most unusual.
Try impossible. The chief of detectives hadn't even designed him until this year. Vielleicht hat er es wegen dem designt. Aber das ist natürlich wahr. That would mean he didn't even exist 2 years ago.
Yes, well, the defense may now be... Stop. Please don't pursue this any further.
Lana.
What's the meaning of this? Please remain seated in the defendant's chair. But you can't do this. I've already confessed to the crime. Why can't you just leave it at that?
Chief Prosecutor Sky. We've already come this far. It's too late to turn back.
Silence! The defense will now begin its cross-examination. Bailiff, please detain the defendant.
Seems we're finally getting to the core of the matter. Alright. Let's do it. When I saw the man raise his knife. Was Neil? When you say that man, I assume you refer to Joe Dark?
Yes, at least I think it was him.
Aber es müsste Neil sein. You think?
All I could really see were shadows.
Power outage that immediately preceded the incident is also documented in the prosecutor's office reports.
So then you...
Panic and rush towards both of them. Why would you do something so dangerous?
What else could I have done? He was about to stab Mr. Marshall.
She seems convinced that Dark was the one holding the knife. Oh nein, und wenn es wirklich Neil war, dann hat Emma nur Joe Dark geholfen, Neil umzubringen.
Das wird ihr nicht gefallen, das wird ihr nicht gefallen.
But as we've just theorized, Mr. Marshall was the one holding the knife, yeah.
Well, I didn't know that at the time. When that dark guy knocked me down, all I could think was, I've gotta help the other person.
I think I knocked away the man with the knife. What do you mean, you think?
It all happened so fast, and I was in shock. I don't remember everything clearly. What I did, it's all kind of a blur.
This guy was almost killed before she was witness to a murder about to take place. With so much happening in a matter of seconds, a little disorientation is only natural. You a little?
I saw the man about to stab the other person, who I thought was Mr. Marshall. I knew I had to stop the man with the knife. What you did was very brave, young girl. So then, what happened next?
Then there was another flash of lightning, and that's when I saw the blue badger. Are you sure about this?
Of course. See? I even drew a picture of him here.
But it was the chief of detectives who thought up this hideous beast. And that was just this year. The blue badger didn't exist 2 years ago. This is all quite verifiable.
I know it sounds strange. I was surprised too when I saw him at the police department. I had this nagging feeling that I've seen him before somewhere. Now I finally remember.
Oh, brother. Just when you thought that thing had caused enough commotion.
Tell us, where in the room did you see him dancing?
He wasn't in the room, but I'm sure I saw his shadow. His shadow. Also nur ein Schatten. His shadow. So you mean you didn't actually see his face with its winning smile and all?
That's right, but I still remember it. He had 3 creepy horns.
This is pointless. That thing couldn't have possibly existed 2 years ago. The witness must be mistaken. That may well be. But what's important is what caused her to think she saw what she did. Oh, and I suppose you have an explanation. If so, then by all means, tell us what this shadow really was. What was it? What was it Emma saw when that lightning flashed? Who is this blue badger really? I just might know, I'm not sure. I just might know. The blue badger hadn't even been dreamt up when Emma drew this picture. Yet she's certain she saw its shadow. Ja, wir dürfen nicht an den Blue Badger denken, weil den gibt's ja nicht. Ladies and gentlemen, it is the defense's belief that on that fateful day, 2 years ago, there indeed was something that looked similar to the Blue Badger. Something that is now sitting in this very room.
Mr. Wright! In this room? Very well, Mr. Wright. What is it that the witness saw in that instant? Please show us this mysterious Blue Badger look-alike.
Okay. Also, ihn gab's nicht, ja? Wir müssen wegdenken von dem Blue Badger. Das hier ist ja alles Quatsch. Huch. Moment. Genau, hier Schuh. Messer kann auch kein Schatten vom Blue Badger sein. Alles nicht der Fall. Aber hier haben wir etwas, das 3 Zipfel hat. Das ist das Einzige, was so aussieht. The mysterious Blue Badger was in fact this. Und das Ding ist, das sollte ich eben gucken, die Vase war damals im Büro. Das heißt, sie könnte diesen Schatten geworfen haben.
But that's... what exactly is that?
I believe it's some sort of jar.
But, Mr. Wright, that doesn't look anything like the Blue Badger.
Oh, come on. Also. Schon. Indeed, it doesn't. As it stands now, it's just a plain jar. However, what if we were to change our viewpoint?
Our viewpoint?
Ach so. Ja, weil der Blue... Okay. Er hat nicht so einen langen Zipfel, aber wir können ja einfach... Moment, wie funktioniert das? Ah. Okay. Ups. Irgendwie so, ne? So, ne? This isn't right. I've got to make it look more like the Badger. Hab ich doch gemacht! Allow me to remind the defense. Its case hinges on the witness drawing. Mr. Wright can't match the shape the witness drew. We cannot accept this claim. I've got to find just the right angle. Okay. Muss ich es vielleicht noch... Nee, so will ich es... Oder? Nee. Oder doch? Nee. Oder doch, oder nicht? Vielleicht so noch? Nee, das... Okay, Moment. Vielleicht... Oh Gott. Ich bringe alles durcheinander. Help! Ah! Jetzt habe ich, glaube ich, hab's versaut. Ja, nee, es kann ja nur... Oh Gott. Ja. Sehr gut. Okay. Es kann ja nur so sein, ne? Vielleicht so? Verarsch mich nicht. Es sieht genau so aus. Unglaublich. Ich würde es gerne... So funktioniert es ja gar nicht, ne? Also es muss ja eigentlich in diesem Angle sein. Oder... Geht's auch so? Nee, ne? Nee, das... Der Part muss ja oben sein. Muss ich vielleicht drehen? Ist es das, was ihr wollt? Aha, vielleicht... Ah, okay. Es ist... So wollen sie es haben, ne? Irgendwie so. Es war dasselbe. Well, is this a miracle or what? No one can possibly deny this char's resemblance to the blue badger. Boom, 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 boom. No, it can't be. Yes, it can.
Order! Order! The defense has proven its claim. The mysterious blue badger witnessed on the day of the crime was actually this...
Although we all enjoyed Mr. Wright's dramatic performance, one question remains.
What does this mean?
What's your point?
What do you mean?
So that badger thing was actually this jar. That doesn't change anything. Das stimmt eigentlich. I'm afraid that's where you're wrong, Mr. Edgeworth. You see, this changes everything. Indeed. Very well then, please tell us. What's different now that we know the witness saw this jar? The location, the murder weapon, the murderer. Hä? What's different? The location? Können wir hier was? Nee. The location, the murder weapon. Also der Murder Weapon macht ja keinen Sinn. Wir haben die Murder Weapon jetzt rausgefunden. Der Murderer? Was hat die Jar mit dem Murderer zu tun? Eigentlich nichts, ne? Und die Location? Es kommt noch darauf an, wo die Jar gestanden ist. Aber es ist das Einzige, was, glaube ich, Sinn macht von den dreien. Allow me to take these in turn. At the moment of the murder, the witness saw this jar. At a very specific angle, I might add, Mr. Wright. Yes, well, knowing this, where could she have seen this jar?
Where?
Location of the jar is shown in a picture taken on the day of the crime. Ja, genau. It's on a shelf in the office of Damon Gant. Yeah. But the body was found lying near Lana Sky's desk. The witness testified so herself. Yes, and it is these two facts that reveal what actually transpired. You see, the struggle between Dark and Marshall did not take place in Lana Sky's office. It happened on the other side of the room in Chief Gant's office. Are you implying the murderer moved the victim's body from Damon Gant's office to Lana Sky's office? Yes. Why would he do that? There's no reason. Exactly. If there wasn't a reason, he wouldn't have gone through the trouble. The only logical conclusion is that there was a reason.
Do you know what that reason was, Mr. Wright?
I finally figured it out. So this is why Lana tried to stop the trial.
too late to quit now, though. Please recall the witness's testimony. She said she knocked away the man who was holding up the knife. In the next instant, the jar was hit and flew through the air. Now tell me, what could have sent the jar flying? That would have been the impact the man made when he was knocked into the wall. Ladies and gentlemen, if I may draw your attention to this picture once more. If the man was knocked in the direction of the shelf the jar was sitting on, what would he have hit? Oh! Das habe ich gar nicht bemerkt. The suit of armor, holding a very sharp and dangerous looking sword. Yes. And since the man who was knocked into the armor was carrying a broken knife, he would have had to been Neil Marshall wielding the King of Prosecutors trophy. No, Mr. Wright, you can't be thinking. Yes, there is another possibility of what actually transpired in that room. Another possibility? Of course, the perpetrator would have no idea, but nevertheless. I don't know if I can go through with this. Mr. Wright, what's the matter? Events took place as the defense theorizes. Then the outcome is obvious. In that moment, assuming the man Emma Skye knocked away was actually Prosecutor Neil Marshall. Okay, es ist sogar noch schlimmer geworden. Als dass sie Joe Dark geholfen hat, denn sie war es scheinbar selber. You mean Mr. Marshall died because of me? No! I never imagined our testimony would lead to this. So, it was the witness who took the victim's life, and then proved so with her own testimony. This is Da ist schon wieder das Wort. Das hatten wir schon mal heute. What does this mean? What are you saying? I'm sorry, Miss Skye. Given the circumstances, Joe Dark murdered Prosecutor Marshall. How can you think it was Emma? How dare you try to pin the crime on her? Imagine that coming from you. If you recall, it was you who admitted to forging evidence 2 years ago. The reason you moved to Prosecutor Marshall's body was to keep anyone else from finding out about what Emma did, wasn't it? I assure you, Mr. Edgeworth, I had no idea what you're talking about. If you hope to have anyone believe your insane allegations, I'm afraid you're going to have to prove. Tell me, do you have any conclusive evidence that proves my sister killed Neil Marshall? Evidence? I'm willing to bet you don't. Yes, it certainly would be difficult to prove this with evidence. If we don't have evidence, then we'll have to rely on testimony. I'm afraid that won't work in this case. Both parties involved in the incident are dead. certainly can't get dead people to testify. This has all been a wild goose chase from the beginning.
Oh? Huh. Touché, Miss Guy. Of course. That only leaves us with one possibility.
You mean there's still another possibility? What does this mean, Mr. Edgeworth?
I mean the possibility that the victim has left us a message. For better or for worse, Mr. Marshall did not die instantly. He may have left behind the name of the person who took his life. Ich weiß es. In one manner or another.
That's impossible. Well, Mr. Wright, this is the only possibility left to you. A message from the deceased. Does such a message exist? I've got to think back to the court record.
A real murderer's name that the victim may have left behind is in the evidence. This message from the deceased is already in our possession.
Mr. Wright! Will you stop at nothing to prove my sister a murderer?
Do not be mistaken, Miss Guy. Our purpose is not to accuse Emma of any crime. There is only one thing we seek. The truth. No matter how painful it may be.
Now then, Mr. Wright. Please show us the piece of evidence that conveys the message from the deceased.
Wie ich schon im letzten Part gesagt habe. Es sieht aus, wie als ob es von Nils Mantel wäre. Und der Handabdruck gehört Emma. This is the message from the deceased.
Right. Now then, this is the message from the
judge. Wait, what? If a dead person left behind a message, it would have to be written in written form. That's the only logical conclusion. You better be careful or you might wind up deceased yourself. Okay.
Let's try this again.
To be fair. Das ist ja nichts, was er extra hinterlassen hat. Das ist einfach, der Handabdruck, der ist einfach passiert. Das ist ja nicht wegen ihm passiert. Nein. Ja, genau. Hier. Also das heißt, er hat das geschrieben, also wahrscheinlich in Blut, wie immer. Das einzige, hier haben wir Blut. Ja, und das andere hat alles nichts zu tun. Ja, hier hat es halt Blut, ne? Das so ein bisschen gezogen ist, also das hätte geschrieben werden können. This is the message left by the deceased.
This is that blue badger from before, right? Oh, is he going to just speak the killer's name?
That thing could, I'm sure it would. Looks like everyone's forgotten this is just a jar. A message was left here, on the surface of this jar.
What do you mean?
Es ist echt extrem. If you look closely, you can see a faint trail of blood on this jar. Looks like someone wiped the blood away. Yes, but notice. For some reason, the blood on some of the fragments was not wiped away.
Yes, there is a line here drawn in blood.
So, what you're saying is these dots were once lines? Prosecutor Marshall did not die instantly. He used a few precious moments left to him to leave behind a message. one that someone apparently wiped away. But blood must have seeped into the jar where the lines changed directions. Precisely so, all we need to do is connect these points, and the victim's message will become apparent.
No. Mr. Wright, what kind of message did the victim leave for us?
Your Honor, I believe these bloodstains will reveal to us the answer. I've got to connect these dots to make letters. There's only one thing the victim would have written, given the circumstances. His murderer's name. Okay. Also Emma. Ja, und man kann hier schon so ein bisschen sehen. Das ist definitiv ein M. Dann ist das hier definitiv ein E. Dann haben wir hier ein A. It's the defense attorney's duty to prove their client's innocence. That's why all I've been thinking about is saving Lana. After all my efforts, I never thought it would turn out like this. Emma. So, this is the final message Prosecutor Marshall left behind.
Of all people. She may not have meant it, but in the end, the one who took the victim's life
was Emma Skye.
See, Worthy, can't say I didn't warn you.
Chief Gant.
Do you understand the implications of what you've done?
What are you talking about?
2 years ago, Joe Dog was sentenced to death. He was convicted because his final murder. I believe you are the prosecutor in the case, were you not? Yes, Worthy. Because of you, an innocent man was sentenced to death. Not only that, but you used forged evidence to ensure his conviction.
But Joe Dog really was a serial murderer. That's undeniable.
I'm afraid that's not important. Didn't you know we aren't defenders of justice?
What?
We're merely keepers of the law. Sentencing a man to death is no light matter. Even if there wasn't any cover-up or evidence forgery, ultimately the responsibility falls on the prosecutor in charge. Despite what anyone may say, this fact cannot be denied. What's going on at the prosecutor's office? They might have sent an innocent man to his death. How can he... Order! 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 What does this mean?
Galva's pouting fell on deaf ears. Unable to settle the crowd, the judge declared a recess. Where this trial is headed, no one knows. To be continued. So, da hätten wir, so wie es aussieht, die Vergangenheit geklärt. Mit einem unbefriedigenden Ergebnis, dass Emma diesen Joe Dog versehentlich umgebracht hat. Nee, nicht Joe Dark, ich meine Neil Marshall, was rede ich da, Neil Marshall umgebracht hat. Was vermutlich aber nicht als Mord, wie sagt man, nicht als Mord gewertet wird, sondern irgendwie sowas wie Selbstverteidigung, sowas in der Art. Ja, aber das Ding ist halt, das ist die Vergangenheit. Und wir müssen immer noch rausfinden, wer für Goodmans Tod verantwortlich ist. Warum Lana hier Emma verteidigt hat, ist klar. Aber theoretisch, das ist ja jetzt draußen und eigentlich dürfte sie jetzt keinen Grund mehr haben, sich zu stellen, weil das ist ja jetzt vorbei. Das mit Emma. Von daher bin ich mal gespannt, wie es im aktuellen Fall dann weitergehen wird. Das ist auf jeden Fall die letzte Episode, die wir dann im Anschluss haben werden. Für den ersten Teil. Und ja, dann würde ich mal sagen, bleibt gespannt. Bis zum nächsten Mal. Macht's gut, Leute. Und tschö.
But what does this mean?